Hey guys, it's Biz from the Casual Athlete here. Welcome back to some more NRL Fantasy coverage for 2024. Right now, I'm going to go through the optimal strategy of managing the first ever NRL Round 1 in Vegas. Now, I've been playing fantasy for 10, 12 years now, and I don't ever remember a situation where Round 1 has been staggered, where some games are 1 week and the others are another week. So obviously this has fantasy implications. Like, for example, we're going to get the team lists for the Roosters, Broncos, Rabbits, and Manly in a day or two. And they're going to play this upcoming weekend. And then we're going to get the team lists for the rest of the teams next Tuesday at 4 p.m. And then the remaining teams will play the weekend after. So for those who don't know, NRL Fantasy, if you're new, it works on a lockout system. So generally, what's changed over the last 5 years or so, it's a rolling lockout. And what that means is you can actually move players, you can trade players, as long as they haven't played yet for that week. So the only caveat to that is captains and vice captains. They get locked in at the very first game of the round. So obviously, in terms of having a captain for round 1 this year, I would just make sure your captain and vice captain, they're not under any doubt. There's no job security issues. Like Cleary, Hines are very good bets. I might even think of potentially captaining Payne Haas this year just because he'll be playing in Vegas and, breathe a sigh of relief when, he gets out of the way. But I think the key thing this year is making sure that you don't load up too many people from these teams. And what's the reason for that? Now, once these teams play, those players you have in those teams are locked. You can't change them. You can't trade them. And if you trade them, it can only be the next week after, and it'll count towards your annual trades. But everyone outside of these 4 teams, you can still trade as many times as you want for free up until they play. So, for example, if you have 10 of your team from the Broncos, 10 of your team will be locked, and the other, 13 odd teams will play next week, and you've only got limited squad moves to make up for that. So, for example, say you've got, I'm just using an absolute random example here. Say you've invested $1 million into Nathan Cleary, and he gets the flu or COVID, or he gets hurt next week, and he's not playing. All of a sudden, you've got 10 of your players locked in, and you can't make the moves to kind of get him around. Now, actually, Cleary is a bad example because you can trade Cleary to anyone. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's really hard to shuffle if a lot of your players are locked and there's only a few things you can shuffle around. So in terms of flexibility, this is the year that I would recommend having maybe not more than 4 or 5 players from these 4 teams. It just gives you the most flexibility to move things around because there's always team list surprises week 1. I know we get a good glimpse of what teams look like during the last week of preseason, but these always change. And there's going to be a player who doesn't make the team or gets benched or randomly starting that you might want. So that maximum flexibility is key. So in terms of what I would do is, like, these are 4 of the better teams, right? You would say that Broncos, Roosters, Rabbits are all fighting for top 4, and Manly, hopefully a top 8 team this year. So there are a lot of fantasy weapons here. Like, for example, from the Broncos, you might have a Haas, a Carrigan, a Reece Walsh, and Adam Reynolds. You might punt on Cobbo, and then for the Roosters, you have Teddy. You might have some of those second rowers like Angus, or you might think of a bigger role. You might have Joey Manu, you might have Swali, could be all sorts of players. And obviously for Rabbits, Damien Cook, Latrell, Murray, all guns in their own rights, and then Turbo is probably, and Cherry Evans, etc. from Manly. Now, if you get all of those players, you don't have much flexibility. So my potential plan is trying to limit these guys. I think Haas for me is a non-negotiable. I think I like Murray. I was keen on having Turbo and Teddy, but I don't think I'm going to lock in that many players because I want to have the flexibility to move things around as much as I can next week. But that's how I would approach this season. So I've just created this as a video format because I know a lot of our viewers have been asking for this. But just to confirm one more time, players get locked once their game is about to start. So, for example, if Rabbits and Manly were the first game, and you have Cam Murray, as soon as they kick off, Cam Murray is locked. He's in your team. You can't do anything. But the remaining 20 players of your squad, you can chop and change. So that's my guidance for you guys. Don't load up too much to maximize flexibility. If it's still confusing to you, because I know there might be some first-time players who don't really get it, if I haven't explained it well, like just drop a comment and I'll reply, or Longy or someone will reply from the team. But look, it's a really exciting thing. It makes fantasy a bit tricky, but it also gives us some footy a week early. So that's my advice. That's my strategy. And all the best. It shouldn't be a deterrent for getting good players from these teams. Like if you think that you need 6 or 7 of these guys, like I'm not saying that's an absolute no-go, but I think you just have to keep in mind that the more players you have from these teams, the less you'll be able to move around next week. So if that's a sacrifice you're willing to make to get in the guns from these teams, because there are a lot, as I've named, then maybe it's worth it for you. But thanks for listening. And as always, if you like this content, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. And I'll catch you in the next video.